The words themselves were precise, delivered with the practiced sweetness Gloria always reserved for public pronouncements. "Happy birthday, my dear," my mother-in-law said, her voice lilting. "Although you are not my real grandchild because you are made in a lab, I still love you." I felt the sudden, shocking silence of 100-watt light bulb shattering in a small room. The entire space, our living room, filled with balloons and the noisy chaos of 8 5-year-olds, went still. 5-year-old Lily, standing by the cake with the number 5 candle flickering in front of her, slowly turned her head, her wide brown eyes, usually alight with curiosity and mischief, fixed on her grandmother. My heart didn't just sink, it felt like it was violently ripped from my chest. We had fought so hard for that moment. 7 years of trying. 3 miscarriages that had left my husband, Nathan, and me emotionally hollowed out. 4 failed rounds of in vitro fertilization that had chewed up $90,000 of our savings and left my body bruised and sick from months of daily hormone injections. Gloria knew every single detail. She had watched us cry. She had watched me give myself shots in the stomach every morning before work, knowing exactly the journey, the physical pain, and the financial ruin that brought Lily to us. Yet, here she was, using Lily's birthday to declare her a biological asterisk, an inferior product of a doctor's office, not a miracle of love. Nathan was standing right next to me, his arm resting lightly on my shoulder moments before. He was supposed to be the buffer, the protector, the son who understood what his mother was capable of. Instead, he simply stood there, immobile, a stunned expression slowly settling on his face. His jaw muscles worked silently under his skin, but no sound escaped his throat. He looked at his mother. He looked at me. He looked down at the carpet. He did everything but defend the little girl he had waited a lifetime to hold. The party continued around the silence, a terrible, forced continuation. Parents steered their children away from the cake table, suddenly fascinated with the brightly colored juice boxes. Lily didn't scream or throw a tantrum. She just became small. She asked her little friend if she could be excused, and walked upstairs to her room. I followed 30 seconds later and found her curled up on her bed, a tiny, desperate knot of confusion. She cried for 3 solid hours. Not the angry, momentary crying of a 5-year-old denied a toy, but deep, ragged, gut-wrenching sobs that shook her whole frame. "Am I fake, Bennett?" she whispered between breaths. "Is it true? Did you and Daddy not love each other? Is that why Grandma didn't bring me presents like she brought my cousins?" That was the worst part. Gloria had arrived empty-handed. She always did for Lily, but her 2 other grandchildren, Nathan's brother's kids, received lavish gifts on their birthdays, which Gloria then photographed and posted online, calling them her precious angels. Lily was not in a single photo. I sat there holding my child, rocking her as she asked the questions no 5-year-old should ever have to ask. Do I count? Am I real? When Nathan finally came upstairs, the last guest having fled the lingering horror, I looked at him with an intensity that should have burned him where he stood. He avoided my gaze, rubbing the back of his neck nervously. I know, he mumbled, refusing to meet my eyes. But I didn't want to make a scene, Bennett. Not at her party. You know how Mom is." The excuse was a fresh betrayal. He valued keeping the fragile peace with his toxic mother over protecting his child's soul. I felt the slow, cold seed of resentment take root. 8 years of our lives, our health, our money, our future, had been spent fighting for this child, and in one cruel sentence, his mother had tried to invalidate it all. Nathan's silence was his complicity, a painful moral failure that I knew, deep down, I could never forget. As I held my sobbing daughter and listened to my husband rationalize his cowardice, I made a silent vow. I realized that the fight for Lily's worth was not over. It had just begun, and if Nathan wouldn't fight his mother, I would. I started documenting that day. Every missed birthday, every ignored hug, every photo posted online that excluded Lily. I started preparing for a war I knew we could not win with niceties. 8 years passed in a silent, suffocating war, but I was done pretending that peace was possible. That day, when Lily cried herself to sleep and Nathan stammered his excuse about not wanting a scene, I knew I couldn't rely on him to defend our family. I had to become the fortress. The first year was the hardest. Every birthday card Lily received from Nathan's side was scrutinized. Every family gathering felt like a performance of exclusion. Gloria doubled down on her cruelty. She would drive 2 hours every weekend to see Nathan's brother's 2 children, bringing them expensive toys and candy right in front of Lily at holiday dinners. She would coo over the cousins, asking them detailed questions about their private school and their achievements, while Lily sat silent, meticulously ignored, a ghost at her own family's table. Nathan insisted that his mother was just old-fashioned. He would say, "She will come around, Bennett. Give it time." Sometimes he'd accuse me of being too sensitive, which only fueled my quiet resolve. He didn't understand that I wasn't sensitive, I was documenting. My documentation wasn't just therapeutic, it was strategic. I didn't keep a handwritten diary of my feelings. I kept an organized file of proof. I took screenshots of every single photo Gloria posted online of the other grandchildren, hundreds of them, often with captions like, "My precious angel," or "The sweetest gift." Not a single one featured Lily. I recorded the dates of every missed visit, every ignored call, and every cutting remark, logging the evidence like a detective building a case. I instinctively knew that someday, this mountain of documented rejection would be the only thing strong enough to break through Nathan's lifelong conditioning. I channeled my rage into fiercely protecting Lily's self-worth. If Gloria wanted to make her feel expensive and fake, I would make her feel priceless and real. I enrolled Lily in every class I could afford: dance, art, science camps. She thrived. She won the district spelling bee when she was 8, a small, brilliant victory that I celebrated with the ferocity of a battle won. She made friends easily, a confident, intelligent girl who gradually stopped asking why her grandmother was different from her friends' grandmothers. My own career became a tool for protection. I went back to work as a pediatric nurse, not just for the income but for the clarity. I was promoted to charge nurse, then to nursing supervisor, making good money and saving every penny for Lily's college fund. We bought a bigger house in a better school district. Gloria never once came to see it. She had excuses for not crossing town, but always time to drive 2 hours to the cousins. Lily had my parents, who flew in from Arizona every holiday and called every Sunday without fail. They sent her letters and packages, their love a constant, unconditional affirmation. They were her real grandparents, the people who showed up, who didn't care about the logistics of her conception. They just loved the child. This was the model of family I desperately wanted Lily to trust. 8 years passed this way, a cold war of silent snubs and relentless counter-affirmation. Lily blossomed, her painful questions about being fake fading into the background of her busy, happy life. Nathan and I had settled into a routine of avoidance. We avoided discussing his mother, and I avoided attending any gathering where Gloria would be present. But the peace we had was fragile, built on avoidance, not resolution. I knew the conflict wasn't truly over until Gloria either changed or was finally shut out, and Gloria, being who she was not capable of change. The true test, the moment the volcano I had been monitoring for 8 years was finally due to erupt, came last month, 8 years after the cake incident. Lily was 13, tall, confident, and smart, and Gloria, now 70, called Nathan crying. Her health was failing. She needed full-time care, and the nice facilities, the kind she felt entitled to, cost $8,000 a month. She couldn't afford it on her Social Security. Nathan's brother, the father of her precious angels, was broke from a divorce. "You are my only hope," she said, using those exact words, dripping with practiced pathos. Nathan, his guilt immediately resurfacing, wanted to help immediately. "We have the money, Bennett," he said, already reaching for his checkbook. "It's the right thing to do. Lily would want us to be kind." I looked at my husband, who was still trying to buy peace with the woman who had broken our 5-year-old's heart. "Invite your mother over," I said, my voice calm, steady, and utterly cold. "We will discuss it as a family." The confrontation, the one I had been documenting for 8 long years, was finally scheduled. I walked to my home office and opened the secure file. The folder of evidence was ready. The fight was about to begin, and I would not lose this time. The silence in the house felt like the pulled back hammer of a gun. We had built a fortress of success, a bigger house, a secure college fund, a thriving daughter. But the ghosts of the past are never permanently locked out. They simply wait for the moment of maximum vulnerability to force their way back in. Gloria's call. with its theatrical weeping and urgent plea, had shaken Nathan. It was the call of the mother in need, a signal that short-circuited 8 years of logic and painful experience. "You are my only hope," she'd said, and that phrase resonated with the lifetime of guilt she had instilled in him. He paced the living room for an hour after her call, his corporate training dissolving into childhood anxiety. $8,000 a month, Bennett, he repeated, running a hand through his hair. "She can't afford that. We have the money now. We can help her. It's the right thing to do. She's old." He was arguing morality, but I knew he was really arguing conditioning. He was still the little boy terrified of disappointing his powerful mother. "She's old," I countered quietly, folding Lily's laundry with unnatural precision. But she wasn't old when she told our 5-year-old daughter she wasn't real. She wasn't old when she spent 8 years deliberately excluding her. I watched the conflict play out on his face, the immediate, habitual surge of guilt battling the hard-won loyalty to our family. Lily would want us to be kind, he insisted, using our daughter as a human shield against his own discomfort. Lily would want us to be safe, I corrected, and she would want the person who broke her heart to acknowledge it, something Gloria has never done. We argued in circles until I finally cut him off. "Invite her over, Nathan. We will not be conducting this discussion over the phone or at her brother's house. We discuss it here, in our home. If she wants our money, she has to come to the people she rejected." He looked surprised by the demand for a face-to-face meeting, but the authority in my voice must have penetrated his fog of guilt, because he eventually nodded. "I'll call her back. I'll tell her tomorrow afternoon." As soon as he left the room, I walked into my office. The air-conditioned space smelled faintly of printer ink and old paper. I sat down at my desk and pulled up the file. The sheer volume of evidence was staggering. It wasn't just my feelings, it was dates, times, screenshots of social media posts, and copies of birthday cards addressed only to Nathan. The file had become a testament to my strength and a painful record of his weakness. I prepared 2 key documents. The first was a physical folder containing about 20 of the most damning screenshots. The photos of the cousins being called precious angels at Christmas, right next to the empty space where Lily should have been. I printed these with the date and caption clearly visible. The second item was a business card I'd researched and printed myself. The state's Medicaid office, with a detailed instruction sheet on how to apply for assisted living aid. It would get her a clean, safe place, but certainly not the ocean view and gourmet dining she coveted. The next day, the atmosphere in the house was thick with anticipatory dread. Lily, now a graceful 13-year-old, came home from school early. She sensed the tension immediately, asking me if the problems with Grandma were starting up again. I assured her that everything was under control and sent her to her room with homework, wanting her present but protected. Gloria arrived promptly at 3 o'clock. She looked frail, much smaller than I remembered, leaning heavily on a cane that I suspected was more for dramatic effect than necessity. She gave Nathan a long, tearful hug, calling him her baby, but she deliberately bypassed me, offering a stiff nod instead. She settled onto our new cream-colored sofa, which she had never seen before, and immediately began her pitch. She didn't ask about Lily's school, my promotion, or our trip to Arizona to see my parents. The only topic was herself and the money. "The facility is beautiful, Nathan," she gushed, pulling out glossy brochures. "Ocean views, a physical therapy pool, gourmet dining. It's exactly what I deserve." And I spoke to the administrator. "They need the deposit by the end of the week. $8,000 a month. Your brother, bless his heart, can't manage a penny." She had already toured it. She had already put down the deposit. She had already told them her son would be paying. Her sense of entitlement was absolute, completely untainted by any sense of remorse or awareness of the hurt she had caused. She was treating us like an automated withdrawal service. "You know, I was telling the administrator about you, Nathan," she continued, beaming, "how my wonderful son, a successful manager, would ensure his mother was taken care of." That's when Lily walked in. She paused in the doorway, tall and confident in her school uniform, her backpack slung over one shoulder. The sight of her, the living, breathing culmination of our love and struggle, brought the air in the room to a standstill. The long, silent war of 8 years was about to culminate in one single, decisive strike. I braced myself for the verbal battle, not realizing the most potent weapon would come from an unexpected source. The air in the living room grew cold the moment Gloria sat down, not acknowledging me, only demanding her payment. She was too self-absorbed to notice the quiet girl standing in the archway until Lily spoke. Lily was 13 now, not the broken 5-year-old. She was taller than me, carrying herself with the confidence her achievements had earned her. She wore her school's debate team pin on her blazer. She looked frail Gloria up and down, a calm, analytical gaze that seemed to pierce right through the facade. "Hello, Mrs. Henderson," Lily said very politely, using the formal address. The sound of that simple title, Mrs. Henderson, not Grandma, hit Gloria like a physical blow. Her practiced smile froze. For 8 years, Gloria had been waiting for us to fold, for Lily to beg for her affection. But the girl before her didn't even recognize the familial title. Gloria tried to recover, her voice suddenly saccharine and loud. "Oh, Lily, darling! Look how big you've gotten! So pretty!" "You have your daddy's eyes." She pushed herself to the edge of the sofa, ready to assume the role she'd ignored for a decade. Lily just stared at her, unmoving. There was no anger in her eyes, only a quiet, unnerving evaluation. The child who had once cried for 3 hours asking if she was fake was gone. In her place stood a poised young woman with perfect boundaries. "I need to leave now, Bennett," Lily said, turning to me, completely bypassing the old woman on the sofa. "Can I go to Chloe's house? We have that science project due." "Yes, honey, of course," I answered, fighting to keep my voice steady, acutely aware of the power dynamics shifting in the room. As Lily headed toward the front door to collect her coat, Gloria, panicked by the impending loss of control, made a final desperate grab for connection. For the role of the loving matriarch, she needed to justify her financial demand. "What, sweetie? Don't you want to give your grandmother a hug before you go? It's been so long." Gloria's voice was shaky, laced with the first hint of genuine fear. Lily stopped dead, her hand on the doorknob. She turned, her whole body perfectly still. Her expression was completely blank. She looked at Gloria, then over to Nathan, who was watching the scene in horrified silence, utterly paralyzed as he had been 8 years ago. Then Lily delivered the line, her voice clear and precise, echoing the cruelty of 8 years prior. "I'm not your real grandchild, remember? I was made in a lab." She didn't wait for a response. She opened the door and walked out, closing it softly behind her. The silence that followed was absolute. It was the sound of a world shattering for the person who had relied on its rigid structure the most. Gloria's facade crumbled instantly. Her face crumpled, the cane slipped from her grasp, and she began to sob. Real, heaving, undignified tears streamed down her face and onto the cream upholstery. She wasn't sobbing for the pain she had caused. She was sobbing because the child she had tried to invalidate had just perfectly invalidated her. I felt something cold and satisfied settle in my chest, a deep, primal sense of justice delivered after years of painful waiting. She had made my 5-year-old daughter sob for 3 hours, asking if she was fake. Now, as a 70-year-old, she had been shown exactly what she had broken. This was the moment. The power shifted from her entitlement to my protection. I stood up slowly and walked to the coffee table, picking up the flat, heavy manila envelope I had prepared. I walked over to the sofa and placed the folder into Gloria's lap, right next to the discarded, glossy brochure for the Ocean View facility. "We won't be paying for anything, Gloria," I said, my voice steady and devoid of pity. "We spent $80,000 and 7 years of our lives fighting for Lily. We won't spend another $8,000 a month on a person who rejected her." Gloria stared at the folder, bewildered. "That folder contains screenshots of every family photo you posted without Lily," I explained. "Every birthday you missed. Every Christmas you ignored us. 8 years of evidence that Lily wasn't your real grandchild." I then produced the second item, a crisp white card. "This is the business card for the state's Medicaid office," I said, handing it to her. "They can help you find an affordable facility. Clean, safe, with decent care. Not the ocean views, but adequate." Gloria stared at the card, tears running down her cheeks. Her gaze swung wildly from me to her son, her face a mask of pleading, naked desperation. "Nathan," she choked out, reaching for his hand. "He's your son, your baby! How can you let your wife do this to your own mother? Nathan was speechless, his whole body tense, his gaze fixed on the floor. The moment was suspended, a terrible echo of the birthday party 8 years ago, when he had stood silent. This time, however, his silence was different. It was the silence before a final deliberate choice. Gloria sat sobbing, her control completely gone, but the final word had yet to be delivered. Her eyes, red and swollen, were fixed on Nathan, begging him to choose her, to save her from the consequences of her own cruelty. "Nathan, please," she wailed. "I'm your mother, your own mother. Don't let your wife do this to me. You owe me this." Nathan finally moved. He took a long, slow breath, and the tension in his shoulders seemed to snap. I watched him closely, my heart pounding a frantic rhythm against my ribs. This was the true test, the moment he had avoided for 8 long years. Would the boy conditioned by fear and obligation win, or would the father who loved his daughter finally take a stand? He looked at his mother, then at me. His gaze settled back on Gloria, and when he spoke, his voice was quiet, rough, and completely stripped of the habitual deference he always used with her. "You told our daughter she wasn't real," Nathan said, his voice flat. He wasn't yelling, but the words carried more weight than any shout. "You broke her heart when she was 5. You spent 8 years ignoring her, rejecting her, making her feel like a mistake." He paused, letting the truth hang in the air. "Why should we fix yours now that you're 70? Gloria went utterly still. The weeping stopped instantly, replaced by a look of profound, paralyzed shock. Nathan had never spoken to her that way, never challenged her authority, not since he was a child. He had just burned the bridge she was standing on. I felt an incredible rush of emotion, relief, vindication, and a surge of love for the man who had finally found his backbone. Nathan stood up slowly. He didn't touch his mother, didn't offer a tissue, or try to soften the blow. He simply waited for her to move. Gloria struggled to push herself off the luxurious sofa she couldn't afford, her legs shaking. She reached for him again, her eyes desperate, silently pleading. Nathan didn't flinch. He walked to the front door, opened it wide, and stood aside. It was a clear, unambiguous dismissal. She stumbled past him, her face a mess of tears and mascara, clutching the Medicaid card and the folder of her own documented malice. I watched her walk to her car, her shoulders hunched. The engine started, and she backed out of the driveway. Nathan closed the door without a sound. The silence that fell upon the house was strange and profound. The silence of a lifelong burden finally set down. Nathan came back into the living room and sat down heavily in the same spot he had been occupying. We didn't speak. I looked at the clock above the fireplace, counting the minutes. 20 minutes passed before he broke the quiet. His words were low, almost inaudible. "I should have defended Lily at that birthday party," he choked out. He ran his hands over his face, his voice thick with shame. "I was a coward, Bennett. I was a complete coward. I let my mother hurt our daughter over and over because I was too scared to stand up to her." He was crying now, silent tears streaming through his fingers. He called himself a coward repeatedly, said he was ashamed it took 8 years and her desperate need for money for him to finally choose his family. Part of me, the part that had been hurt by his passivity, wanted to lash out, to tell him that his apology was 8 years too late. But the larger part, the part that saw his genuine devastation and the ultimate, irreversible choice he had just made, stayed quiet. He had just walked his mother out of our lives and shut the door. He had chosen us. That had to count for something. He had finally sacrificed the approval he had craved since childhood for the love of his family. I got up and sat beside him, pulling him close. He buried his face against my shoulder, sobbing out 8 years of pent-up conflict, avoidance, and guilt. It was a lifetime of fear finally collapsing. We sat there until the tears subsided, until his breathing returned to normal. Lily came home 2 hours later. Her friend's mom dropped her off, and she walked in through the garage door, stopping short when she saw us sitting together on the sofa, the light different in the room. "Has Mrs. Henderson gone for good?" she asked, her voice small. Nathan nodded, wiping his eyes with the back of his hand. "Yes, honey." "For good." Lily crossed the room fast and threw her arms around Nathan. She hugged him tight, and I heard the whisper against his shirt. "I'm proud of you, Daddy, for choosing us." Nathan pulled her close, his shoulders shaking again. He was crying, But this time they were tears of release, not shame. I put my arms around both of them. We stood there, a cohesive unit for the first time in years, letting the pain and the relief wash over us together. Lily pulled back first, her 13-year-old attention span returning to normal things. She asked if she could watch a movie upstairs, and we said yes. She grabbed her backpack and left. Nathan and I stayed up talking until past midnight. He finally explained the root of his inaction. How Gloria had raised him to never question her. How keeping peace was more important than being right. He talked about his childhood, about the way Gloria used guilt to control him, making him feel that wanting anything different from what she wanted was a personal betrayal. Watching Lily today, he said, his voice raw. When Mom tried to hug her and Lily just stared, that broke something inside me, Bennett. Something that needed to break. He finally understood that he'd been carrying his mother's expectations his whole life, putting her toxic feelings before everyone else's, even before his daughter's. It was 3 o'clock in the morning when we finally went to bed. I was exhausted, but a sense of peace settled over me, a feeling that we'd been holding our breath for 8 years and could finally breathe again. The silence was not the silence of avoidance anymore. It was the quiet of a healed house. The house felt strange and quiet that night. The silence of a lifelong burden finally set down. But cutting Gloria out wasn't like flipping a switch. The fallout was immediate and messy. The next morning, Nathan's phone started ringing at 7 o'clock. Gloria's name lit up the screen. He ignored it. She called again and again. By the time he got out of the shower, she had called 15 times. He finally answered the 16th call, placing it on speaker so I could hear. Gloria was sobbing so hard I could barely understand her words. She begged him to reconsider, said she was sorry, said she was wrong about everything. Nathan's voice stayed flat and calm, a new kind of composure I hadn't heard before. He told her the apology was 8 years too late, and he hung up. She called back instantly, but he didn't answer. Over the next 3 days, the calls kept coming, filling his voicemail box. The messages went from apologizing to blaming me. One message claimed I'd turned Nathan against her. Another said she'd always known I was bitter about the IVF. A third claimed she'd tried to love Lily, but it was hard when the child was so cold to her. Nathan made himself listen to them with me. Every message proved we had made the right choice. She was sorry she got caught, not sorry for what she'd done. She was upset about losing Nathan's money, not about hurting Lily. Her sense of entitlement remained absolute. On day 4, Nathan's brother called, his voice angry and loud, demanding to know why we were abandoning their mother in her time of need. Nathan calmly explained what Gloria had done to Lily, starting with the birthday party 8 years ago, listing every time she'd ignored Lily while showering attention on his own children. His brother cut him off. "That's just old people saying dumb things. You're cruel and heartless for holding a grudge this long." Nathan tried to explain the difference between a dumb comment and 8 years of systematic rejection, but his brother hung up on him. The emotional boundary we had drawn severed Nathan's relationship with his brother, too. I sat at my computer that night and researched Gloria's actual care options. I found several assisted living facilities that accepted Medicaid. They weren't ocean views with gourmet dining, but they were clean, safe, and accepted government help, meaning her care would cost nothing out of our pockets. I compiled the information into an email, adding links to the facilities and instructions for the Medicaid application process. I sent it to Nathan's brother with a short message suggesting he help his mother now since we wouldn't be involved. He didn't respond. The stress began to affect Nathan at work. He came home one evening and told me he'd talked to his boss, explaining the entire situation. His boss, an older man, listened patiently, then shared his own experience cutting off his abusive father 15 years ago. Protecting your children comes before honoring parents who don't deserve it, his boss advised him. Family isn't about blood. It's about who shows up and loves you, right? Nathan seemed steadier after that conversation, like hearing someone else validate our choice made it more real. The next morning, Lily came down for breakfast looking subdued. She ate slowly, pushing the cereal around her bowl. She had been quiet since the confrontation. That afternoon, she came home, dropped her backpack, and stood by the door for a minute. She walked over to me, sitting down as I folded laundry. She picked at a loose thread on her jeans, and then asked if she could talk to her therapist again about what happened with Gloria. Lily hadn't been to therapy in 2 years, not since we had helped her work through her initial feelings about being different from other kids. I asked her why she wanted to go back now. Standing up to Mrs. Henderson felt good, she explained, her voice low. But it made me remember being 5 and confused. It brought back all the birthdays and holidays when she just ignored me. I called Adriana Nash's office immediately. The receptionist had an opening in 3 days and I took it. Lily seemed relieved. 3 days later, I drove Lily to her appointment. When the door opened, Lily's eyes were red, but she looked calmer. Adriana asked me to join for the last 10 minutes. She explained that standing up to Gloria felt powerful, but also brought back the old wounds. Healing isn't a straight line, Adriana told Lily, her voice gentle. Sometimes old wounds come back even when you think you've moved past them. That doesn't mean you're broken or weak. It means you're human. Lily nodded and wiped her eyes. We scheduled another appointment for the following week. We thought we were through the worst of it, securing our emotional boundaries, but the antagonism escalated. The next Monday, a certified letter arrived addressed to Nathan. He opened it at the kitchen table and his face went hard as he read. He handed it to me. It was from a lawyer representing Gloria, threatening legal action to compel financial support for her care. It cited something called filial responsibility laws, claiming Nathan had a legal obligation to pay for his mother's medical needs. The letter demanded we contact them within 10 days to arrange payment or face a lawsuit. The threat was intended to terrify Nathan back into submission, but it had the opposite effect. It simply made him furious. "She's suing us?" Nathan asked, his voice shaking, not with fear, but with raw indignation. "She's threatening to sue us for protecting our daughter from her. This is her apology." I told him we'd call a lawyer immediately. We needed to confirm the legal standing of the claim. But more importantly, Nathan needed to feel protected against this final, desperate act of manipulation. Gloria had tried guilt, begging, and shame. Now she was trying force. And Nathan was done being controlled. The lawyer's letter was the last, bitter gift that cemented his loyalty to our fortress. With the external noise quieted, we could finally begin the hard work of rebuilding our internal world. The legal threat had ironically strengthened Nathan's resolve, clarifying that Gloria was interested only in her own comfort, not reconciliation. He called a lawyer that afternoon, a man named Alec Ridley, who read the letter and actually laughed. Alec explained that our state didn't recognize those filial responsibility laws. The threat was empty, a desperate bluff from a lawyer hoping we wouldn't check. Nathan chose to have Alec send a formal response, documenting that we owed Gloria nothing. He wanted it in writing. The next day, Nathan came home from work and told me he was done feeling guilty. I spent weeks questioning if we were too harsh, Bennett, he said, standing straighter than he had in years, but threatening to sue us for protecting our daughter. That crossed a line. I'm finished letting her manipulate me with guilt and obligation. This conviction was a huge step, but the trauma ran deep. A few nights later, Nathan pulled out a notebook and started writing. He'd sit at the kitchen table late, long after Lily went to bed, filling pages with his precise handwriting. I didn't ask what it was. After about 5 days, he told me. "It's a letter to Mom," he explained, looking exhausted but clearer. "A letter I'm never going to send. I'm just getting the feelings out so they stop circling in my head." He read me parts of it. He wrote about growing up scared of disappointing her, about always trying to earn her approval and never managing it. He wrote about watching her reject Lily and feeling paralyzed, because standing up to his mother meant admitting she was cruel. He finally wrote that he understood her approval wasn't worth the cost. That protecting Lily mattered more than keeping the peace with someone who broke his daughter's heart. As he read, I realized he was finally mourning the mother he wished he had, not the one he actually had. This was the true, necessary grief that freed him. Meanwhile, Lily continued her slow, steady climb out of the emotional shadows. She came home from school the next week with a permission slip for a science museum trip. The cost was $200. I told her it sounded wonderful, and she smiled. Then she asked, "Can we afford it?" I looked at her, and the question made my chest tight. For years, Lily had unconsciously internalized Gloria's message that she was expensive and not worth the investment because of the $80,000 we spent on IVF. She always asked about costs multiple times, offered to skip things, held back requests. "Of course we can afford it, honey," I said, meeting her eyes. "You deserve this trip." She smiled, a genuine, unburdened smile, and started filling out the form without asking again. The weight was lifting. She was finally letting herself want things and believe she deserved them. The final piece of reconstruction came from an unexpected source: Nathan's brother. 2 weeks after the legal threat, Nathan's brother finally called. His voice, for the first time, was tired and apologetic. Nathan put him on speaker. "I am truly sorry, Nathan," his brother said. "I didn't understand. Not until I saw all that evidence you sent me. I went through my own old family photos, and Lily wasn't in any of them. I counted the Christmas parties, the birthdays. She was missing from everything." His voice cracked. "I feel sick. I was so busy judging you two for not paying for Mom's luxury care. I didn't see what she did to a child for 8 years straight. I'm sorry for calling you cruel." Nathan listened, his expression softening. When his brother finished, Nathan simply told him he appreciated the apology, and it meant something that he finally understood. His brother asked if there was any chance of reconciliation with Gloria, and Nathan said no immediately, firmly. He explained that Gloria had 8 years to fix what she broke, and she chose not to. But maybe, his brother ventured, maybe we could get coffee sometime. Just the brothers, without Mom involved. Nathan looked at me, and I nodded slightly. "Maybe," he said into the phone. "Maybe in a few weeks when things settle down. We can try that." When he hung up, Nathan looked at me with relief. "A door opened," he said. "A door I thought was permanently sealed. I finally have my brother back, maybe for the first time, without having to pay the price of Gloria's approval." The family fortress was solidifying. Lily was healing, Nathan was choosing us, and the toxic lines of obligation were being severed, even allowing for a tentative, healthy reconnection with his side of the family. The hard work was paying off. The scars remained, but they were now marks of survival, not shame. Our family was finally whole. A few weeks after the legal threat was neutralized, Lily returned to therapy for a family session. We sat on the familiar couch in Adriana's office. Adriana looked at Lily and said she had processed the trauma in a remarkably healthy way. She was building good boundaries and knew her own worth. Then Adriana turned to Nathan and me. "Your decision to protect Lily from more harm was probably the most important thing you could have done for her healing," she said. "Children need to see their parents choose them over people who hurt them, even when those people are family." Nathan reached over and took my hand. Lily sat there looking proud. We scheduled one final check-in session for the next month, but the weekly sessions were over. We had one. 3 weeks later, a birthday card arrived for Lily. The return address had Gloria's name on it. Lily brought it to me, holding it gingerly. I told her she got to choose what to do with it. She carefully opened the envelope. Inside was a card and a check for $50. The message was saccharine and vague, hoping she was doing well in school. Lily read it over my shoulder, her face impassive. She asked if we should keep the money. "We return it," I told her. Opened with a short note requesting no further contact. Lily nodded, a quiet finality in her expression. We put the card and check back in the envelope. I wrote the note, sealed the new envelope, and we walked to the mailbox together. Lily dropped it in herself. She didn't seem upset or angry. She was simply executing a necessary step. On the walk back to the house, she asked if we could get pizza for dinner. The card from Gloria didn't take up any more space in her head than the question of pizza toppings. The following week, Lily had an assignment for English class, an essay about family. She worked on it for 3 nights. When she finished, she showed it to us. The essay said that family isn't about DNA or biology. It's about people who show up and love you without conditions. She wrote about my parents flying in from Arizona every holiday and calling every Sunday. She wrote that those were her real grandparents, even though they weren't related by blood. She never mentioned Gloria by name, but the essay was a declaration of independence, a statement that she was choosing the people who chose her back. Her teacher gave her an A, writing a note that it was one of the most grown-up ways of thinking about family she had ever read. Nathan and I celebrated our 15th wedding anniversary the next month. We sat at a quiet table downtown and talked about the 15 years, the fertility treatments, the heartbreak, the years of silent suffering, and the moment everything changed when Gloria showed up asking for money. Nathan held my hand across the table, his eyes earnest. "I am grateful that you never let me sacrifice our daughter for my mother's approval," he told me. "You were stronger than me, Bennett. You knew how to protect Lily when I was too scared to stand up to Gloria." I reminded him that he made the right choice when it really mattered. In our living room, when Gloria was begging and crying. "That's what Lily will remember, Nathan. Not the years before, but the moment you chose her." He nodded, a sense of peace settling over his features. A week later, Nathan's brother called. He read a letter from Gloria over the phone, asking if she could see Lily one more time to apologize, the right way. She claimed she understood now. Nathan and I sat down with Lily that night and showed her the letter. Lily read it twice, folded it, and placed it back on the table. She thought about it for 2 quiet days. Finally, she came to us and said no. She didn't want to see Gloria or hear any apologies. She had 8 years to apologize. Lily stated, her voice confident. "Now it's too late. I just want to move forward with my life." Nathan called his brother the next day and relayed Lily's decision, explaining that Lily gets to choose who has access to her. His brother didn't argue. He promised he wouldn't pass along any more messages from Gloria. Nathan and I spent the next weekend organizing all the evidence from the folder into a permanent, secure document on my computer. Screenshots, records, and notes. Nathan added his own account page after page about his regret, his shame, and what he learned from failing to protect Lily when she was little. He wrote about watching me document everything, and realizing I had been the strong one, keeping the records while he made excuses. We locked it all away for Lily to read when she was older and needed to understand the full story. The final, unexpected gift of this confrontation was the reconciliation with Nathan's brother. They began meeting regularly for coffee, just the two of them. Nathan returned from these meetings tired, but lighter. His brother confessed that he was ashamed he hadn't seen what Gloria was doing to Lily until Nathan spelled it out with 8 years of documented evidence. They agreed to rebuild their relationship, separate from their mother's toxicity. Nathan had not only protected his daughter, but had retrieved his brother. 6 months after the confrontation, Nathan and I sat on our porch after Lily went to bed. The night air was cool and quiet. He took my hand and said our family was stronger now than it had ever been. Setting boundaries with Gloria wasn't about revenge or being cruel. It was about protecting our daughter. It was about teaching her that she deserves unconditional love from the people in her life. Sometimes that means walking away from people who can't provide it, even if they're family. Especially if they're family. Nathan squeezed my hand. We sat there together watching the stars come out, knowing we had made the right choice for our daughter and for ourselves. The struggle was over, and the peace we had finally earned was absolute.